but we need to know, we need to be ready for the ask. And then to be able to say, okay, yes, this is what I need, and I need this because Nehemiah needed safe passage to get to where he had to go. So he had letters to be written so that he could have safe passage. He needed lumber, and so he knew that the king could write him a letter to get timber and so forth. So he was able to start the work. And then he needed the community. Once he got there, he needed the families and those that were already there to come together and see the vision as he saw it, and be able to then move forward with the vision. And everybody took a part. One started on the west gate, the other on the east gate, and they began to develop in the area where they were living, and but all for the same goal, understanding the same vision. We need to work in collaboration with one another, recognizing what we have to bring, and then once we bring it, look and move forward at the same vision. Before I close, I pastored the church right down the block from Bethel Gospel Assembly. Mount Zion AME Church on 116th Street. You're on 119th Street. And I took a tour for, in the early days, back in the 80s, to see what this congregation was doing, and I was so empowered and impressed, and it ignited me. And when I got to 116th Street and saw, where we were and what we could do, we were trying to do some development because we had 3,000 square feet of space that had not been used because the elevator was no longer working after 40 years. And so trying to figure out how to do that. And moving, and I even had lunch with Dr. Hammond and so forth, trying to move to find out how we were going to do that. In the process, though, of working with a developer, there was another church, Second Corinthian, that was doing development on, I think they're 110th and Lenox, something to that effect. And the same developer was working on it. The developer, and talking about the Holy Spirit, the developer was saying, okay, well, Mount Zion, where I was pastoring, we can't do X, Y, Z. But Second Corinthian needs a space while we're tearing their church down. They need a space to be able to worship. And I said, okay, well, we can work that out. And I told my folk, folk, when they get stuck in a place, worshiping at 11 o'clock on a Sunday, you try to move them. We had already changed for the summer and was worshiping at 10 o'clock. So I said, let's continue with 10 o'clock to allow the congregation to come in. And they came in at 12. We provided some space in our area for the pastor to have an office, and their officers to have space. And they paid us over a 3-year period, $10,000 a month in order to utilize the space. And all it was a conversation and a little adjustment, and we were able to do that. And now I'm no longer the pastor there, but the present pastor can smile and say that he has a few $100,000 in the bank to do what he needs to do. But that's the kind of collaboration, the kind of looking forward. You may not get all that you want at that time, but you're able to leverage yourself to a point where you can get something done, and it benefits everybody.
And so, as we have continued to hear, and I believe we have maybe one other, Dr. Rice, who's just joining us, and we invite him to come. But as he is preparing himself, I would ask Jason, as Jason and I are both practitioners in this space and have on occasion, well, Jason more so than me, has worked, alongside the faith community in terms of their work as they are endeavoring to build and to create and to envision the things and to continue to meet the needs of the communities that they serve. From your perspective as an attorney who has advised many faith-based communities on what is needed, if you can just share a little bit about, what is really needed in terms of their preparedness for the endeavors, whether it be, construction or just any other type of community endeavor.
Thanks, Larry. So, a lot of good insight that you've had already. Resonating with me, I'm going to take this with me. You said, Pastor Nelson, is get out the boat. There's a balance here between sort of taking risks and being uncomfortable, but being informed. And it's not mine. It was said in another panel like this, which has also resonated with me, which is we need to be wise as serpents, but innocent as doves, right? Like, so you need to. Right, I'm preaching. I picked it. Somebody put it down. I picked it up. And so it is about. And sorry, I'm just sort of reciting what I've heard today, but I think this is a good jumping off point for my portion of it, which is it is about collaboration. And so you need to find those people that can bring the knowledge and the resources that are your people, that you trust, and that have the experience. And it's also been said, right, it is not about the castle, it's about the kingdom. It's about the people. So I have two cautionary tales, not to make it too much of a downer, but those are the illustrations that I have, hopefully to raise the import of those two concepts, right? The people, it's really the people, the collaborations, the knowledge, and then working for the community. And then very quickly, I want to make two plugs at the end for things I'd like to call you to act towards. So there are more than a few, let me say that, faith-based organizations with whom we have worked that are about the castle and not about the kingdom. And their numbers are dwindling, and they refuse to get out the boat and look outside and say, what does our community need? And what can we do with this edifice to serve the community and possibly build the kingdom inside? And they're saying, my great-grandfather worshipped at this pew, and so I'm gonna, and what, right, when I'm dead, you can do with it what you want, but I'm gonna be in that pew until I'm dead. And unfortunately, and I was quoted, not a plug, but it's my connection, is several years ago I was part of an article in Cranes about many of the churches in Harlem closing up shop and selling and becoming luxury condos. And part of that happened because they sort of held on, served a dwindling congregation, and then that was it. They had no choice but to sell and move out, move on. And so it is important to have the vision early and say, what are we doing to really build the kingdom and serve the community? And as part of that, let me say, as a cautionary tale, so part of the cautionary tale is look outside of yourself and really see what the community needs, and don't wait till it's too late. Another part of the cautionary tale is do not let a real estate project be the parting gift of your pastor. I have been on more than a few projects where a pastor was trying to say, I'm going to set up the congregation before I retire, and as soon as they retired, the whole thing fell apart. Maybe again because they were working on the castle, not the kingdom. They should have been building the capacity of the people within, the leadership within, to carry the journey when that pastor left. And then I think the last cautionary tale I want to give, which is more of a story, that amuses me at least. One of the very first faith-based projects that I worked on when I became an attorney, which is 12 years ago. I had a previous life in government. A pastor came to us. It was a small church in Brooklyn. And he just walked into our office and he said, "I want a development deal." We said, "Oh, okay. Do you own property? What does the property look like? What sort of development?" And he said, "We want a development deal." Okay. So he said, "Well, we'll do some due diligence. Let us look into it." So we're looking into the property. We're getting information on the property and their corporate documents. Then he calls me up and he said, "Oh, I know it's been a day. Would it change what we could do if I told you we were already in contract to sell the property?" And I said, "Yes." You have a contract. We're going to have to deal with that. I can't just give you a development deal. And he said, "Oh, okay. Well, keep looking into it. Get back to me." I was like, "All right, well, send me the contract." Another day passes. He hasn't sent me the contract. He calls me up again. And he said, "Jason, this is Pastor so-and-so. So I told you, I asked you, would it change things if I had a contract? Would it change things if I told you we had 2 contracts?" I said, "On the same property?" He said, "Yes."
Yes.
Don't do that. That's a bad idea. You can't sell the same thing twice. So, longish story short, we spent 5 years getting him out of, we could not get him a development deal, but got that church out of one contract, closed on the second, used those proceeds to acquire for them a very impressive house of worship by their own design, was outside the city because they couldn't get what they wanted inside of it, which ultimately is a good news story, but they spent unneeded time getting out of the bad deals that they had put themselves in. And as an aside, there were lots of transaction costs, including, and most importantly, or most heartbreakingly, taxes, because the property had become so wasted in the years that it took to get through the litigation that it could no longer remain tax exempt. So the city collected $600,000 out of I think it was a $4 or $5 million transaction. Wow. That was heartbreaking. Ended up well, but if they had had the right team with them at the outset, they could have avoided that. Okay, so those are my cautionary tales. 3 calls to action. 1 update, 2 calls to action. 1 is, hopefully you've all been following the City of Yes. Yes, maybe? The City of Yes has come out of committee, I think. Hopefully it will pass council. This will be very good for affordable housing. It will be very good for houses of faith because it has benefits for houses of faith that changes the zoning law. So look out for that. That can drastically, or at least not insubstantially, affect your properties. The second is there is a group called Bricks and Mortals. So Bricks and Mortals, like we are mortals. Oh, amazing, thank you. You should become members. If you don't know about it, join. It is there to help faith-based organizations do what this panel is designed to do, help you maximize your real property. And then the last is, there is a bill before the state legislature called the Faith-Based Affordable Housing Act. Faith-Based Affordable Housing Act. Call your assembly person, call your senator. I think that there's a petition. If you join Bricks and Mortals, you'll get the information. But it will increase or allow, as of right, faith-based properties, regardless of whether they are currently zoned to develop housing, to develop contextual, that means sort of in the context of the neighborhood you're in, housing, which is amazing because it can create income, but it can also serve the community. Housing is a critical need, so if cautionary tales and call to action. That's my story.
So I want to thank Jason and everyone here. I believe we have about 5 minutes left, but I want to invite Reverend Dillon to allow Reverend Rice to have some closing remarks around this whole affordable housing piece. Reverend Rice, I believe, pastors in Queens, right up the street. But I remember him from Staten Island.
He's pointed in the wrong direction, but
But I know him from Staten Island. You also pastored on Staten Island, correct? With one of my classmates, Tony Baker, who also and Victor Brown, and shout out for NYTS, New York Theater. But anyway, we're gonna ask Reverend Rice just to come and just give us a few closing remarks as relates to his journey in the housing space.
Thank you so much to all my colleagues here and to all of you. I don't know what else to be said. Tony pretty much said everything I would say. I have, basically, when I was in Staten Island, I did housing. The housing we did then, I don't think it no longer exists. We were doing 202 housing. And we were doing it with a group called the Lifers, actually, ex-offenders who was doing some major work over in Newark, New Jersey, and expanded into Staten Island. We bought up rundown housing, and we did a whole block pretty much. But since I've been here in Queens, God gave me a vision for a charter school. You will see a brand new building. I think I'm pointing in the right direction. Is that that way? Okay, I think I've been around since I came here to do charter school, and we just finished a $10 million project over there. We're moving in there, and some other things we've done. But I have some principles that I developed for myself. I share them with whoever asks me for them, but I call it 3 Ps. First is plan. You have to plan, and planning is not a sit down tonight and do it. It's something that you got to really investigate and plan. And he who she who fails to plan to do what? Fail. To fail. And then my next P is pace yourself. You have this city is a city that I hope it's a city of yes, as the attorney said, but right now it's more a city of no. And you have to pace yourself and be patient. It requires patience because everything is a tour. You have to. I mean, nothing gets done in this city fast, quick, and in a hurry. So you have to pace yourself. And if you think you're going to get a permit tomorrow, it's not going to happen. If you think you're going to get a TCO tomorrow, it's not going to happen. No matter who you know or who you call, it's still a pacing, and that requires what God asks of us all, to be patient and wait on Him, and He will pace yourself. And that's my second P. My third P would be pay. Somebody say pay. Pay. You got to figure out how you're gonna pay for stuff. You know, I develop relationships. I don't depend on government funding. I don't depend on. In fact, we get very little government funding, but I've developed over the years relationship with small community banks on Staten Island who followed me over here, and my relationship with them followed me over here. That's how we financed this $10 million project. People think we got government funding. We didn't get a dime in government funding, but we put that building up almost in record time, and I'm proud of that facility.
We want to thank all of our speakers as they have provided. I believe we're over time. I'm getting so unfortunately, if there were any questions, I just want
to say I'm Pastor Tracy and I do the Southeast Queens Peace Parade. I want to say that Bishop Rice is such a wonderful man of God, and we need more like him. When someone is trying to do projects in the community, welcome people in. He did for me. I met him through a friend, another pastor who happened to ordain me, and he took myself in. I had 30 children from the city of New York for the summer youth program. And we came over to his church. He let us collect donations as his congregation came out for my parade. The young men were only 15, 16, 17, were so impressed that they wanted to be in his church because of his greatness of God. I want to say that. Thank you.
Amen.
I know we're out of time, and the boss lady's back there. But you know, I don't know if we have time to do it now. But I think there's a side that I'd love to see clergy focus a little more energy around, and that is how do we create economic empowerment, business development, ministries within our churches, where we're working with the business members in our congregation, finding out who they are, creating business directories, and we don't have time. I'd love, Joe Holland skipped over all of the great stuff he's been doing in Harlem. I mean, the first body shop, the first Ben & Jerry's, Uptown, Gospel Uptown restaurant, La Famille, Harlem Travel. So there are just so many businesses. Unfortunately, probably most of those businesses are no longer there. So the next issue for another time, another conversation, is how do we really create sustainability? And I know it comes back to being properly funded and all of that stuff. So hopefully we could maybe dive into that later on, Larry. But thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Dillon. I think it also takes the 3 Ps: plan, patience, payment.
To you, imagine our CDFI. How can we use the CDFI model to extend to where people can participate in banking activities, including asset management?
Right, and so the community development financial institution model exists for that exact purpose of utilizing the resources that are within the community from a grassroots aspect. And so it's one thing of just being able to understand, and a lot of it is asset mapping. And asset mapping is really looking at what's in your communities and the assets that you have within your community. Who are the professionals in your community? And what are the needs of the community? And then how do you galvanize those efforts? And how do you use the existing resources within the community, the existing faith-based entities that are already doing some of that work? And as Pastor Joanne or Elder Joanne said, how do we collaborate together in this effort? I think it's really about utilizing the resources that we all have together. As Pastor indicated, partnering with Bishop Rice, and Bishop Rice being open to that collaborative engagement, which then creates a groundswell of activity. And so I know I'm not answering your question directly because we don't have enough time to do that, but it's really about understanding where the resources are, making those connections. I think it's beautiful that we are in this space, that we can network together, and so I would love to speak with you at the end to kind of like give you a little bit more insight into how I'm thinking about that. But collaboratively together, we need to just continue to explore the models and be willing and daring at times to be innovative and open to the endless possibilities, right? And not to take no, but to take yes. Thank you all.
All right, I just want to say that Dr. George Fraser is here, the best-selling author of Success Runs in Our Race, Power Networking Conference and Leader. So we're going to go over right now, and he's going to close us